Tax Tip Tuesday is brought to you by PorterKinney, the Tri-Cities premier CPA firm.
It is now 6:47. You're watching Wake Up Northwest, and in this morning's Tax Tip Tuesday, Chris Porter from PorterKinney is here to talk about tax strategies for people who invest and the best way to kind of maximize the tax benefits. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
All right, so when people generally think about investing, the first thing that pops at least into my mind is the good old-fashioned IRAs.
That's right. Yeah, so those are what we call tax-deferred investments. IRAs and 401ks are two very commonly known tax-deferred investments. And by tax-deferred, I mean that if you put money in there and the investment grows over time, the earnings are not taxed year after year after year. Instead, the tax is deferred until later when you take the money out.
And theoretically, when we take that money out, when we're retired, we will probably be in a lower tax bracket.
That's right.
Okay, so you were saying the whole goal is to have your investments make money, earn more and more money. But what happens if you have some investments that are, as we like to say, losers? What do you do with those?
That's right. So the tax law is interesting with those. So if you have a stock that's gone down in value significantly, you can't write off that loss until you actually sell it. So sometimes people are holding on to these loser stocks because they're hoping they're going to rebound over time. But they don't always rebound. So sometimes the right strategy is to sell the losers, get rid of the losers, and that could also be helpful if you have a year in which you have a lot of capital gains, you have a lot of stock gains. In that same year, if you could time it right, so that in the same year that you have the capital gains, you offset it with some of those loser stocks.
So then it kind of is a wash with any type of capital gain taxes that you have to pay?
That's right. It's generally good tax planning. Meet with your advisor or your CPA at the end of the year and try to offset your gains with losses and wash it out.
And what about if you're like me, who seems to have more losses than gains? What type of strategy do you have for us?
That's a great question. So when you have more losses than gains, you could only write off $3,000 of losses against your other income, against like your wage income, for example. So sometimes it's just good to try to get a gain in there to offset the losses. Even if it's a year or two late, that could still work.
All right. Any other last minute advice for people who are doing some investing that might be able to help them out with maybe this year's taxes?
Well, if you hold on to a stock for longer than a year, you get a better tax rate than if you sell it for less than a year.
Okay, Chris, again, thank you so much. Always wonderful advice. It is now 6:49. You're watching Wake Up Northwest, your full forecast in the morning rush, coming up in just 2 minutes.